Down and out, riddled with doubt, had nowhere to go. Everything's moving so slow, the time's moving too fast. I hope this feeling don't last. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping on to you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping on to you, on to you. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping on to you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping on to you, on to you. I was down and out, so riddled with doubt.
am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it all go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shake it all go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Good morning. You know who you are. That's me. This is Uncle Warren, and we're doing news stuff this morning. News. Hang on just a second. There's something bugging me there. Okay. All right. Before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to Willie Bragg hooking it up with a 10 spot there. Thanks, Willie. He says, I bet some of these private health insurance company CEOs wished progressives in Congress used hashtag force the vote against Nancy Pelosi. Imagine single-payer health care in the USA and Brian Thompson alive. Right. I don't think they've found them. They haven't found the person, the suspect, I don't think. And they still don't have a motive. I mean, that's the obvious motive, but be somebody in New York who maybe lost coverage or something, or maybe a loved one lost coverage or they wouldn't cover something. Who knows what it could be, but I hate to speculate on what it actually is. I'm pretty sure it's the obvious thing that we think it is. But who knows? As always, fuckery is afoot. You guys see me okay over there on YouTube? I'm having some weird thing. There we go. Had some weird stuff in the chat there. Every time weird stuff happens, like the other night I was doing the secret show, and I have this little thing in here in my little control panel, and it shows me the chats that are coming in, and then I can highlight them, right? So like, for example, we can highlight, let's go back up here. We can highlight Willie's thing there, and then they could take it away. But it wasn't working. It worked halfway through the show, and then halfway through the show, it stopped doing it, so I couldn't highlight messages. And I felt bad, because I like to get my chats involved, my peeps. Anyway, speaking of peeps, we got John Kemper in the house. Was that a cape he was wearing? I know, right? The gallows humor, or not so gallows in some cases. Antoine's here. What's going on, my man? Of course, like we said, Willie Bragg. Willie says he's doing a video tonight on Glenn Greenwald and Ben Shapiro's different take on Brian Thompson's tragedy. Shapiro thinks insurance companies are the victim. That's what he said right there. Come on, stop that. So that'll be good. 8 p.m. Eastern, right, Willie? Is that right? You doing that tonight? We got Chuck here. Chuck's floating around in outer space, hanging out, watching the stupid humans down below. I think that's it so far. Nobody over on the Rockfin or Rumbles, and who God knows about Facebook. That desolate plane of existence. No, I'm kidding. Facebook is okay. So every once in a while somebody pops in there like they're trying to find the bathroom, and they open the door and say, oh wait, that's not the bathroom, this is somebody's news show. All right, let's get to things. We got, of course, this holiday season, thinking about our friends and family and stuff like that. We should be thinking about our pal Chanda, who's battling lung cancer. She's, I think she's almost done with the chemo, but she probably still has more radiation treatments to go. And of course, that shit is not cheap. So she has a GoFundMe. The link is in the description below if you want to donate to it. That's great. If you want to share out the link, that works too. Both are mucho apreciado. I probably just butchered the shit out of that. It's appreciated. That's what I meant to say. A lot of news over the weekend, and we'll get to Syria. But first, there's this just in. So of course, they had the martial law declared in South Korea. Well, that didn't go over so well with the kids they call themselves check notes North Koreans, South Koreans. I'm sure the North Koreans were like nyuk 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 like the Stooges. So the South Korean president Yoon is set to resign. This is from Kyle Anzalone over at the Libertarian Institute. He pulls double duty there, and antiwar.com. Both good sites for good independent journalism. The party of South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol says he will step aside after his failed attempt to invoke martial law last week. People Power Party leader, the Triple P, Han Dong-hoon explained that Yoon would resign sometime soon and would cease all official business immediately. Through the orderly early resignation of the president, we will minimize the confusion to South Korea and its people, stably resolve the political situation, and recover liberal democracy. Well, you don't have to do that. He said Sunday, the Liberal Party anyway, even before his resignation, the president will not be involved in state affairs, including diplomacy. So basically, he is president in name only till he steps down. Han said, along with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, he would help govern Seoul through the transition of power during a joint presser. That's a press conference for those who are not familiar with the lingo of the news biz. During a joint presser, the two leaders stressed the importance of South Korea maintaining a strong military relationship with the U.S. and Japan. Like, hey, we're still boys, right? We're still, yay! I know y'all cray over there, but, we're still cool, right? I didn't say nothing. It was that bitch over there. Yoon's downfall started Tuesday night when he declared martial law. The South Korean parliament quickly voted against the order, and Yoon retracted his declaration. I don't know how you say oopsie sauce in Korean, but that's what he said. The opposition Democratic Party held an impeachment vote to remove Yoon from office, which he survived with the backing of his Triple P. Yoon then apologized for invoking martial law, but did not discuss resigning. The Democratic Party is also calling for the president's arrest. The opposition is saying that, boy, that's something you'll never hear in America, right? Unless it's Trump. The Democratic Party is also calling for the president's arrest. Unless it's Trump's president, of course. And then you were hearing that all the time. The opposition is saying that Yoon and his Triple P are not living up to his commitment to step away from official duties as he accepted the Interior Minister's resignation. The exclusion of President Yoon from duties was a blatant lie, a Democratic Party statement said. Ooh, sizzle. The scandal. Meanwhile, South Korean president is banned from leaving the country. So you can step down, but you cannot step out of the country. He's reportedly under criminal investigation for imposing martial law, so that's why they say he can't go. South Korea's Justice Ministry has banned President Yoon Suk Yeol from leaving the country after he briefly imposed martial law last week. Actions have consequences, folks. Various media outlets reported on Monday it is the first time in South Korean history that the measure has been applied against a sitting president, according to a Dong Libo daily newspaper. I'm not saying that word again. The travel ban, which has been requested by the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, was announced by a Justice Ministry official at a parliamentary hearing, according to Reuters. A thorough investigation will be carried out into the leader and key offenders related to treason, the Washington Post cited the head of the Corruption Investigation Office, or the CIO, as saying on Monday. The police earlier launched an investigation into Yoon on suspicion of insurrection, according to reports. Where we heard that before? A sitting South Korean president has immunity from prosecution while in office. However, the president can be arrested or indicted in relation to allegations of insurrection or treason. So, yeah, you can only hide behind that for so long, I guess. Last Tuesday, Yoon delivered a surprise televised address declaring emergency martial law on the grounds that the opposition, which he accused of being sympathetic towards North Korea, had been preparing a rebellion. Shortly after, a majority of lawmakers voted unanimously to lift a decree, as we said, and thousands of people took to the streets to condemn the president's actions. He lifted the martial law on Wednesday. And so that leads us to this, is the fury of people as they, he was set to be impeached, and he managed to get out of that, but the people were none too pleased. In a bid to impeach South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol over his short-lived imposition of martial law failed Saturday, after lawmakers from his Conservative Party left the National Assembly chamber and refused to take part in the vote. So this is why it failed. Supporters of impeachment needed at least 8 members of Yoon's Triple P to support removing the president, who apologized to the nation in a 1-minute-long address Saturday morning. But it's like, hey, man, I thought, well, martial law might be a good thing. Maybe the kids are doing it. Maybe it's a new dance. And it turns out I'm a piece of shit now. So, peace out, home slice. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, you piece of shit. But refused to step down after he briefly instituted martial law in a stated attempt to eradicate shameful pro-North Korean forces, plunging the country into political crisis. So his gambit sparked immediate and sustained protests and was widely seen as a coup attempt. Now, we'll tell you what a real coup attempt looks like here shortly. So Saturday's impeachment effort drew a massive number of people into the streets outside the National Assembly building, despite below freezing temperatures, and demonstrators voiced outrage when they learned that Yoon's allies thwarted the initial attempt to oust him. Just 2 Triple P members returned to the National Assembly chamber to cast a ballot on Saturday. So these are the demonstrators there. Organizers said roughly 1 million people took part in demonstrations Saturday in support of Yoon's impeachment. Well, I'm pretty sure they're pretty fond of the old stepping down, but I think they'd rather have seen him impeached, maybe get some actual justice, because many also demanded his arrest. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, which has over 1.1 million members, called Triple P lawmakers who boycotted Saturday's vote accomplices in treason. So, if they don't vote, then they can't impeach him, which is kind of ridiculous. I think you would probably need, it shouldn't matter if it's just people in your own party, The Triple P has turned its back on the people's wishes, effectively admitting their complicity, KCTU said in a statement. That's the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, as we said. Posted to social media, more than 1 million citizens gathered in front of the National Assembly. They came together because they cannot forgive a president who declared martial law and aimed weapons at his own people. Despite the cold winter weather, they took to the streets hoping desperately for the impeachment to pass. Well, it didn't pass, but, like we said, he's stepping down, and so is the ex-defense minister has been arrested. So all kinds of crazy shit going. South Korea alone, right? So Yoon's former defense minister was arrested yesterday over his alleged role in the declaration of martial law last week. According to prosecutors, Yoon survived the impeachment vote, as we said. The leader of Yoon's Triple P, Han Dong-hoon, said in a press conference with the Prime Minister that Yoon will not be involved in foreign and other state affairs. We told you that. Ex-Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun, who stepped down on Wednesday after Yoon rescinded martial law, was seen as a central figure in the debacle. He had proposed martial law to the president, according to a senior military official, and the impeachment filings. The prosecution's special investigation team arrested Kim on Sunday, seized his mobile phone, said in a brief statement to reporters before the arrest. Investigators questioned Kim, who voluntarily appeared at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office around 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, local time, Yonhap News Agency reported. 3 minority opposition parties filed a complaint with the prosecution against Yoon, Kim, and martial law commander Park An-soo, accusing them of insurrection. If convicted, the crime of leading an insurrection is punishable by death or life imprisonment with or without prison labor. Good old prison labor. Breaking rocks and making license plates. Opposition lawmakers allege Yoon mobilized military forces to block a vote by lawmakers seeking to nullify what they said was an unconstitutional martial law decree. The National Police raided Kim's office yesterday as part of an investigation into claims of treason against Yoon and top ministers. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said on Sunday the cabinet would do its best to maintain trust with our allies, referring to the U.S. and Japan. So craziness there. And I believe their interior minister has resigned as well. So South Korean government, is in shambles. It's interesting to think, to know what North Korea is thinking about this right now. South Korea's interior minister resigned yesterday following those declarations of martial law that plunged the country into turmoil. Lee Sang-min said he was stepping down in grave recognition of responsibility for failing to serve the public and the president well, according to the Jung-ang Ilbo newspaper. The president accepted his resignation, the paper said. Lee and Yoon are among those being investigated for alleged insurrection. So that was another member of his parliament in South Korea getting whacked. Well, let's get to what's a lot of people are talking about. They're talking about Syria. They're talking about it. So Syria pretty much is in chaos as well. So the Syrian army command tells officers that Assad's rule has ended. This was on, this is on Friday, I believe. Was it? Yeah, no. What's today? The 9th? No, this was yesterday. So, over the weekend, Syria's army command notified officers that President Bashir al-Assad's rule has ended following a lightning rebel offensive. A Syrian officer who was informed of the move told Reuters. Syrian rebels said Damascus was now free of Assad. Earlier, Assad flew out of Damascus for an unknown destination. Well, he's in Russia now. We'll tell you about that in a second. As rebels said they entered the capital with no sign of army deployments. Took it relatively easily, just like Aleppo and Hama before. Thousands in cars and on foot congregated at a main square in Damascus, waving and chanting freedom, witnesses said. We celebrate with the Syrian people the news of freeing our prisoners and releasing their chains and announcing the end of the era of injustice in Sednaya prison, said the rebels. So the prison there, they basically went in, opened up, let everybody out. It's a large military prison on the outskirts of Damascus where the Syrian government detained thousands. A Syrian airplane took off from Damascus airport around the time the capital was reported to have been taken by rebels, according to data from the Flight Radar website. The aircraft initially flew towards Syria's coastal region, a stronghold of Assad's Alawite sect, but then made an abrupt U-turn and flew in the opposite direction for a few minutes before disappearing off the map. Turns out that was probably turned off their transponder. Reuters cannot immediately ascertain who was on board, Was probably just a decoy plane. So, just hours earlier, rebels announced they had gained full control of the key city of Homs after only a day of fighting, leaving Assad's 24-year rule dangling by a thread. Thousands of Homs residents poured onto the streets after the army withdrew from the central city, dancing and chanting, "Assad is gone, Homs is free, and long live Syria, and down with Bashar al-Assad." Rebels fired into the air in celebration, and youths tore down posters of the Syrian president, whose territorial control has collapsed in a dizzying week-long retreat by the military. The fall of Homs gave the insurgents control over Syria's strategic heartland and a key highway crossroads, severing Damascus from the coastal region that is the stronghold of Assad's Alawite sect and where his Russian allies have a naval base and air base. We'll talk about the Russian bases here in a second too. Homs' capture is also a powerful symbol of the rebel movement's dramatic comeback in the 13-year-old conflict. Swaths of Homs were destroyed by grueling siege warfare between the rebels and the army years ago. The fighting ground down the insurgents, who were forced out. So the Syrian opposition leader says state institutions will be preserved in an 18-month transition. This is from Middle East Eye there. So a governing body run by the Syrian opposition, assumedly that's HTS right now, will lead a transitional period of 18 months, including 6 months to draft a new constitution. The head of the main Syrian opposition coalition told Middle East Eye yesterday. Hadi al-Barra spoke with Middle East Eye on the sidelines of the Doha Forum Conference hours after Syrian rebels toppled Bashar al-Assad, ending his family's 54-year authoritarian rule after nearly 14 years of war. Yeah, because his father was in charge before then, too. Al-Barra is the president of the Syrian National Coalition, an alliance of opposition groups formed in exile following the 2011 uprising against Assad. He said his opposition coalition should be expanded to add new elements of the opposition and would then be tasked with forming a transitional government, acting as president of the country until a new constitution is ratified. Al-Barra said the transition should be in line with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2254, adopted on December 18, 2015, which outlines a roadmap for Syria's political transition, including nationwide ceasefire, accountability for atrocities, and free and fair elections under a new constitution. Rebel fighters entered Damascus around 5 a.m. local time without resistance, quickly capturing the international airport, the state TV building, and many other strategic government facilities. Government forces and personnel reportedly withdrew from their positions, allowing a smooth takeover for the rebels. One of the theories there is that because of the sanctions, Assad couldn't pay his military, and so his military turned on him because he owed him money. Give me back my $2. You were giving me my $2. That's what the kid said from that movie. So Assad, as we said, is in Russia. His prime minister, Mohammad Ghazi al-Jalali, has agreed with rebels to remain in Syria and support the transition to a new system. We appreciate that the prime minister did not run away like the president, al-Barra said. He took a risk and he stayed, but then he was comforted knowing that nobody will hurt him, and then he volunteered also to have a transitional plan and organized transition. Al-Barra spoke about the need to preserve Syrian institutions and protect the economy over the next phase. We don't want to destroy the current state institutions. We want to keep them running. See, that was the thing. They're learning from the mistakes of what the U.S. did in Iraq, when Iraq basically took when the U.S. took everything. They took the army out, took the military out, and basically replaced all these people with like these bureaucratic heads, and it all went to shit. So they're like, no, we don't want it. We want to keep everything intact, allegedly. Yeah, exactly. Assad was bad for Syria, but these moderate terrorists are way, way worse. Although they have said they do want to free Lebanon. They want to destroy Israel. So who knows what kind of people we're dealing with here, for real. So he explained that current civil servants will remain in their jobs and that only political appointees will be replaced. The priority will be to enhance government services by training and injecting new blood into agencies, including through high-tech capabilities. We need to rerun the economy, he said, but noted that this would require the support of other countries. Syria needs humanitarian assistance, he said, noting that this year aid to Syria has dropped by 26%. We need to start early recovery projects to make life easier for the people and also to start increasing the livelihood of the people and provide job opportunities for them. I'm sure there's a friend who would like to help with that. We're going to tell you about that in a second. If we can get the economy to rerun itself within a year and a half to 2 years, then we will become less dependent on humanitarian assistance. Al-Bara said the rebels set a world record by liberating the capital Damascus within less than 2 weeks after rebel groups led by Abu Muhammad al-Jilani's HTS began their offensive from northern Idlib province. Yeah, world record, how about that? Called Guinness. We did that while the international community was about to normalize their relations with Assad, he said. They believed that he won, but they never understood that the Syrian crisis has its own dynamic. Al-Bara said that his vision for the new Syria is a united land and people where all citizens have equal rights and duties. Speaking of the role of the Kurdish-dominated Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, who control swaths of eastern Syria, Al-Bara said it needs to break its relationship with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, a Kurdish armed group designated as a terrorist organization by Turkey, the U.S., and the EU. He said the SDF did not stand clearly with the Syria revolution and sided with the Assad government on many occasions. He said the opposition expects the SDF to cut its relations with the PKK in order to be included in the transitional period. They should become a 100% Syrian organization sharing the same objectives, he said. Al-Bara said that Syrian exiles can now return to their homes if they haven't been destroyed by fighting. That's the houses, not the people. More than half the population, well, I guess the people too. More than half the population has been either internally displaced or forced to live as refugees in other countries since Assad's violent suppression of the 2011 uprising. Now they have the option to go back home. My house in Damascus has been confiscated by the government, and Hezbollah, a senior leader of Hezbollah, has been living in my house. Now I can liberate my house, at least get it back, and I could visit Syria more often, and I can have the option to stay in Syria. Yeah, so that's what they're looking at least these rebels are saying. And as we all know, folks, it's not what you say, it's what you do. So like we said, Assad made it to Moscow. He was granted asylum by Putin. I can't believe I forgot Putin. Former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has been granted asylum in Russia and arrived in Russia with his family. RIA Novosti and TASS reported on Sunday, citing Kremlin sources. The development came as Syrian militants seized control of Damascus, effectively ending Assad's 24-year rule. And then it goes on to talk about the large-scale offensive by HTS, led by a former al-Qaeda commander and previously known as Jabhat al-Nusra. The group initiated a surprise offensive from the opposition-held province of Idlib in northern Syria last week, and that's where it all went to shit. So Assad, along with members of his family, arrived in Moscow. Russia granted them asylum on humanitarian grounds. According to TASS, it was later verified that Putin rubber-stamped that. Moscow has called for the resumption of UN-led negotiations to resolve the Syrian crisis. Leaders of the Syrian armed opposition have assured the safety of Russian military bases and diplomatic missions operating in Syria, according to Kremlin officials, as cited by RIA, right? So why did it fall so fast? So this is from RT. And this kind of gives us a little bit of a, kind of a breaking it down a little bit as to what, how this happened so quickly. So with each passing day since October 7th last year, the contours of the regional processes unfolding in the Middle East became increasingly clear. That day, a watershed moment for the entire region, left behind a multitude of questions that remain unanswered. One of the most formidable intelligence agencies in the world, Israel's Mossad, failed to foresee or prevent the attack by Palestinian groups, sparking widespread astonishment. However, beneath this shocking event lies a series of deeper processes steadily propelling the region towards profound transformations. Mechanisms that once seemed hidden are now becoming more apparent, revealing a deliberate design to reshape those nations that long resisted Western influence and expansion. So, on the morning of December 8th, the region was shaken by news that until recently seemed unimaginable. Damascus had fallen to the forces of opposition and terrorist groups. The Ba'ath Party's rule under President Bashar al-Assad had been effectively destroyed. Assad's disappearance and the silence from official sources only amplified the sense of irreversible damage. Right, so they didn't say anything until he was safe in Russia. Following a prolonged war with Hamas and the near-total defeat of Lebanon's Hezbollah, international and regional actors shifted their focus to Syria, a key player in the axis of resistance against Israel. Syria, which had long served as a cornerstone of Iranian policy in the region, became the latest link in a chain of nations succumbing to mounting internal and external pressures. Oh, you mean like the CIA coming in and starting these, color revolutions? We're breaking democracy. Oh, can we have all your shit? These events appear to be part of a broader scenario aimed at fundamentally altering the political and social landscape of the Middle East, with the weakening of key participants in the axis of resistance. From Palestinian groups to Syria and Lebanon, a crucial question arises: who will be the next target of this rapidly unfolding plan? Well, I mean, they have a plan. The Zionists have a plan to expand Israel into Syria, into Lebanon, and Jordan, and other places to grow Israel itself. The fate of the region, as well as answers to pressing questions about the role of external forces in these developments, remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the Middle East will never be the same again. They keep saying that. So the escalation in Idlib province that began 11 days ago rapidly spiraled into a series of events that have dramatically transformed Syria's situation. On the 7th, armed opposition forces and fighters from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, that's HTS, encircled Damascus, the nation's capital. Within a single night, they seized the strategic city of Homs, encountering little resistance, and advanced into Damascus itself. I mean, it was just like boom, boom, boom. Along their path, they freed prisoners from numerous detention facilities, including Syria's largest prison, as we told you, symbolizing the region's total loss of control. By midday on the 7th, panic had engulfed the city. Syrian soldiers, shedding their uniforms for civilian attire, fled the capital in haste, leaving it nearly defenseless. By nightfall, the streets of Damascus were deserted of military personnel, replaced by frightened citizens scrambling to stockpile food and flee their homes. This exodus was particularly evident in the affluent northern districts, where residents departed en masse, fearing chaos. In contrast, the southern part of the city presented a starkly different scene. There, the opposition was welcomed as liberators. Crowds gathered in celebration, waving flags, and in a climactic act of defiance, the statue of Hafez Assad, the founder of the modern Syrian regime and father of Bashar al-Assad, was torn down. Amid these dramatic events, Syrian Prime Minister Mohammed Ghazi al-Jalali made an urgent announcement. In a statement relayed by Al Arabiya, he declared the government's capitulation and expressed his readiness to cooperate with the country's new leadership. Al-Jalali stressed that most ministries had remained in Damascus to ensure the continued functioning of state institutions and to prevent chaos during the transitional period. He also revealed that an agreement had been reached with HTS leader Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, marking a significant step in minimizing destruction in the capital. The words of Hadi al-Barra, head of Syrian National Coalition, carried a tone of hope for a new chapter in the country's history. He stated the situation is safe, the dark times in Syria have ended, and there is no place for vengeance in the new Syria. This declaration sought to reassure the population and highlight the opposition's intent to avoid reprisals. Yet behind the facade of such statements lies an undeniable anxiety about Syria's future, its political fate, and stability amid a period of profound transformation. A new day has dawned for the country, but whether it will bring peace remains an unanswered question. The events unfolding in Syria are far from coincidental. They are the result of deep-seated processes that have been building for years. This tragedy was likely predestined by a confluence of internal contradictions, external pressures, and historical missteps, collectively creating a perfect storm capable of toppling even the most entrenched regimes. The Syrian crisis, which began as a standoff between the government and certain opposition groups, evolved into a prolonged conflict fueled by a complex mosaic of local, regional, and international interests. And I'm going to have the link to this after the show if you want to read more about this. But this has been going on. I mean, he took power, I think, back in 2000, I think. And then this, so he was 13 of his 24 years was civil war that Syria has been dealing with. But like we said, don't worry about the people in Syria, because look who's coming to help. Come on, let's get on the democracy train. We're going to Syria. So, of course, the U.S. is like the guy in the tree, the guy at the meme, and the guy behind the tree, behind the tree, and he's rubbing his hands. U.S. to work with partners in Syria to manage risk after Assad toppled, Biden said. Or somebody said it for Biden. He probably didn't say that. The United States will work with partners and stakeholders in Syria to help seize an opportunity and manage the risk. U.S. President Joe Biden said Sunday after militants overthrew Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. In remarks at the White House, Biden said the U.S. will support Syria's neighbors through the period of transition and will assess the words and actions of militant groups. Biden said the United States does not officially know of Assad's whereabouts, wink, wink, but noted reports that he fled to Moscow, which he did. He said Assad should be held accountable. Biden said Syria is in a period of risk and uncertainty, and that it is the first time in years that neither Russia nor Iran nor the Hezbollah militant organization held an influential role in Syria. For years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia, but over the last week, their support collapsed. All three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office, said Biden, who is also far weaker than he was when he took office in 2021. Biden said U.S. forces conducted a dozen precision strikes within Syria, targeting camps and operatives of Daesh yesterday. In a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country, it's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. And then he fell asleep and shit his pants. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risk. So that means, so you just want to hang out and help us out, and then you'll be gone, right? Yeah, you're gonna leave, right? The U.S. will remain in eastern Syria and seek to prevent Daesh resurgence. See, we're just gonna hang out, we just want to make sure none of the shit gets broken. The U.S. will maintain its presence in eastern Syria and will take measures necessary to prevent a resurgence of Daesh. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, Daniel Shapiro, said yesterday, speaking hours after Syrian rebels announced they had toppled Bashar Assad's government. Shapiro called on all parties to protect civilians, particularly minorities, and to respect international norms. We are aware that the chaotic and dynamic circumstances on the ground in Syria could give Daesh space to find the ability to become active, to plan external operations, and we're determined to work with those partners to continue to degrade their capabilities. I don't like people who say, well, we're going to work with our partners. It's like, and that's just, that's too corporate-y. He told the Manama Dialogue Security Conference in Bahrain's capital, we're determined to ensure Islamic State's enduring defeat, to ensure the secure detention of Daesh fighters and the repatriation of displaced persons, Shapiro added. HTS, which spearheaded the militant advances across western Syria, as we said, is formerly known as the Nusra Front, until its leader, Abdul Muhammad al-Ghalani, severed ties with the global jihadist movement in 2016. Western governments, which has shunned the Assad-led state for years, must decide how to deal with the new administration in which HTS looks set to have influence. HTS is a globally designated terrorist group. CBC voter, happy Monday to you, my friend. Hope all is well in your neck of the woods. U.S. President Joe Biden keeping a close eye on extraordinary events transpiring in Syria, the White House said Saturday. So they're not going anywhere. They're going to hang out. And that's what they do. They stay there, for security. Meanwhile, they bring in private contractors, military and whatnot to, and the money. There's going to be a lot of money made off of Syria after all this. And guess what, kids? That was probably the goal. Like we said, Russia in the mix, though, but Russia is not sweating it. They said its army bases in Syria on alert, but no serious threat. Moscow said yesterday that Russian troops on their bases in Syria on high alert, but that there's no immediate threat to them. Russian military bases on the territory of Syria are on a regime of heightened alert. At the moment, there's no serious threat to their safety. That's according to Russia's foreign ministry. They're cool. They're like, they're not tripping. And so apparently the Syrian militants said, you're cool too. So Syrian militants pledged to protect Russian bases. Interesting. The anti-government militants and jihadists who toppled Bashar al-Assad's government in Syria have guaranteed the security of Russia's military bases and diplomatic outposts in the country, the Kremlin source reportedly told TASS news agency. HTS, jihadists, and U.S. armed Free Syrian Army militants stormed Damascus on Saturday as the Syrian army stood down and Assad left the country for asylum in Russia. Speaking to TASS later on Sunday, an unnamed Kremlin source said that Russian officials are in contact with representatives of the armed Syrian opposition. These representatives have guaranteed the security of Russian military bases and diplomatic institutions on Syrian territory so far, the source said, adding that we hope for the continuation of political dialogue in the name of the interests of the Syrian people and the development of bilateral relations between Russia and Syria. Russia intervened in the Syrian civil war in 2015, helping Assad wrest back control of his country from Islamic State. That's ISIS, y'all, or IS now, and a panoply of foreign-sponsored militias and jihadist groups. This time around, Moscow did not commit forces to hold back the HTS and FSA assault, with the Russian Foreign Ministry stating that Assad had decided to relinquish power peacefully following back-channel talks with several opposition groups. Russia did not participate in these negotiations, the ministry noted. Russia began construction of the Khmeimim air base near Latakia shortly after it came to Assad's aid in 2015. The facility has since been used by the Russian Air Force to launch attacks on IS and other terrorist groups in Syria and to transport supplies and weapons into the country. The Air Force base is located around 60 kilometers from the Russian naval facility at Tartus, which was built by the Soviet Union in 1971. Russia signed a 49-year lease on the facility in 2017, allowing Moscow full sovereignty over the base and giving the Russian Navy permission to station up to 11 vessels there. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that both facilities had been placed on high alert during the insurgents' advance on Damascus, but there's currently no serious threat to their security. So, yeah, because I don't think HTS would be that stupid to provoke a fight with the Russians, seeing how the Russians probably have them outgunned and, outmanned, or at least outgunned. So Israel, being the rats that they are, of course they have to take advantage of the situation. Israel seizes Golan Heights buffer zone after overthrow of Assad. The Israeli military moved to seize a buffer zone in the occupied Golan Heights as the Assad government fell in Damascus. The Golan Heights was partly occupied by Israel in 1967, with a buffer zone separating territory they control and territory still held by Syria, created in 1974. So that was 50 years ago. Following the ousting of Assad on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Fayyad said the end of his rule meant that the 50-year-old disengagement agreement between the two countries had collapsed and Syrian forces have abandoned their positions. I directed the Israeli military yesterday to seize the buffer zone and the commanding positions nearby. We will not allow any hostile force to establish itself on our border, he said. He made the announcement during a visit to the Golan Heights, which is recognized by the vast majority of the world as occupied, with the notable exception of their pimp daddy, the United States. The Israeli army also ordered residents of 5 communities in Syria-controlled territory not to leave their homes until further notice. The communities named were Ophania, Quneitra, Al-Hamidiyah, Al-Samdania, Al-Garbia, and Al-Catania. Eat it, dictionary. Until 2011, the territory was relatively peaceful, despite repeated promises by the Syrian government that they would retake it. After the outbreak of war in Syria, however, there were a number of clashes involving a range of armed groups. Although Netanyahu has publicly welcomed the fall of Assad, he's remained wary about the opposition forces led by HTS, a former al-Qaeda affiliate that has been traditionally deeply hostile to Israel. So careful what you wish for there, pal. The Israeli army on Sunday announced a troop deployment to the Golan Heights, citing the possible entry of armed individuals into the buffer zone. Yeah, right. That would be you. You were the armed individuals in the buffer zone, jackass. Following the recent events in Syria, the military has deployed forces in the buffer zone and in several other places necessary for its defense to ensure the safety of the communities of the Golan Heights, and the citizens of Israel, it said in a statement, adding that it would continue to operate as long as necessary in order to preserve the buffer zone and defend Israel. Defend the buffer zone. It added that Israel was not interfering with the internal events in Syria. I'm pretty sure you are. On Sunday, Israeli jets reportedly bombed Syrian military bases that have fallen into rebel hands. Later on Sunday, there were reports that Israel had struck a scientific research center in the capital. Like I do, they do CENTRE, all European and fancy. According to media reports, the Israeli jets have struck Meza air base near Damascus, ammunition and weapons depots at the Kalkala air base in Sweden, and other areas of Dara province. The Israeli military, as is usual, has not commented. Of course they won't. Syrian rebels seized Damascus early on Sunday, you know that. And then it just goes on to tell you more about that. So that was the ploy, right? That was the whole thing, because they want another aircraft carrier in the Middle East. That's what Israel is to the United States. And they probably said, look, you can expand, and then we'll control the rest of it with our puppets. Ugh. Disgusting, but that's what it is. So they also, Israel also bombards military and government buildings across Damascus following the HTS takeover. So they hit the Masta district and an airbase in Suwaida in southern Syria, just hours after the government fell to the HTS. So like we said, there was They had bombed the Masta military airport, along with customs and intelligence buildings, the security square, scientific research facilities, and defense laboratories. So as we said, they bombed the Kalkala air base. It was evacuated. So I think this is relatively the same story there. So, but they're not done killing people in Lebanon, though. We don't forget Israel. They all over the place. They got to expand that territory. So Israel continues killing citizens in South Lebanon as ceasefire violations persist. Somebody needs to explain what a ceasefire is. I do believe. So 3 people were killed yesterday in an Israeli air raid that targeted the Deben area in southern Lebanese town Marjayon, as Tel Aviv continues to violate the ceasefire with Lebanon since it took effect last month. 3 civilian martyrs fell in the Israeli raid that targeted the lower Al-Arid neighborhood in Deben, reported Lebanon's national news agency correspondent in Marjayon. The attack came one day after 4 people were killed and 6 wounded in an Israeli airstrike on the southern town of Beit Lif. Rescue teams have stopped working due to the lack of the necessary equipment to remove the rubble, the news agency reported. The Lebanese outlet had reported last week that Israel has violated the ceasefire 129 times. They reported that last week. God knows what it is now, after 12 violations were committed in a single day on Wednesday. Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem said on December 5th that despite dozens of Israeli violations inside Lebanon, the group is giving an opportunity for the ceasefire agreement to succeed. Yeah, okay. The resistance group launched a limited rocket attack on Israeli-occupied Lebanese land on December 2nd, with its military media describing the operation as a warning in response to Tel Aviv's consistent violations of the ceasefire. See, Israel ain't supposed to be doing shit for like 60 days. And if Hezbollah does something, then the Lebanese government is supposed to say, hey, chill out. But it's the reverse, though. It's not, Hezbollah is not doing anything, and Israel just keeps violating the ceasefire. Israel responded with over a dozen deadly airstrikes across southern Lebanon. The Israeli army remains deployed across South Lebanon and is required to withdraw within 60 days from the announcement of the ceasefire on November 27th, which they're not doing. Sunday's violations came as Israeli forces invaded Quneitra in southwest Syria to reinforce a UN-monitored buffer zone, coinciding with the fall of the Damascus government and the storming of the country's capital by HTS extremists. A closed military zone has been declared, and Israel said it would remain in the buffer zone for the time being. Sure you will. And of course, what happens in Lebanon is usually mirrored in Gaza and vice versa. So Israel commits a new massacre in Gaza's Nusrat camp. At least 33 Palestinians were killed and over 60 more injured in Israeli attacks on the central and southern Gaza Strip. That was on the 7th there. That was Saturday. Israeli shelling of homes in the Nusrat refugee camp killed 26 people and injured more than 60 others, the Al-Awda hospital said in a statement. An earlier Israeli attack on Nusrat camp on December 5th killed at least 17 Palestinians, including children. Anadolu Ajansi reported additional deaths of Palestinians in Gaza Saturday due to Israeli strikes, citing medical sources. The Turkish outlet said 2 Palestinians were killed when an Israeli drone targeted their motorcycle near the Abu Halawa junction east of Rafah city. 3 Palestinians were killed east of Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip after an Israeli drone targeted a group of people searching for flour. Their bodies were transported to the European Gaza hospital east of Khan Yunis. In central Gaza, an Israeli drone bombed a residential apartment in the Deir al-Balah refugee camp, killing 2 Palestinians and injuring others. Israel's military continues to lay siege to the Kamal Adwan hospital in Beit Lahia and the surrounding area in northern Gaza. On Friday, Israeli forces stormed the hospital under cover of heavy artillery fire and air attacks, killing about 30 people, according to Dr. Eid Sabah, director of nursing at the hospital. Al Jazeera verified a video showing Israeli forces opening fire on a Palestine Red Crescent Society ambulance. They're carrying weapons. That's why they go after those ambulances, because they said they're carrying weapons. They're carrying medicine to help people. But, yeah, it's weapons. So, Israel is a protected country by its buddies in the West, and that, of course, that means the U.S. So the U.S. has to, whenever one of the others in the group start, acting soft, that's when the U.S. has to muscle up on them. So the U.S. to investigate Spain's reported denial of Israel-bound ships carrying U.S. arms. The U.S. has opened an investigation into whether NATO ally Spain has been denying port entry to cargo vessels reportedly transporting U.S. weapons to Israel, which have been used to bombard the Gaza Strip. The Federal Maritime Commission, an independent body charged with monitoring and evaluating conditions that may affect shipping and U.S. international trade, said it had opened the probe after receiving information that Spain had refused to allow at least 3 cargo vessels into its ports. The commission is concerned that this apparent policy of denying entry to certain vessels will create conditions unfavorable to shipping in the foreign trade, it said Thursday in a notice published in the Federal Register. If the investigation determines that Spain has interfered with such commerce, the commission could levy millions of dollars in fines, up to $2.3 million per voyage, it said. The notice said the commission had been informed on November 19th that Spain was denying port entry to ships, including those enrolled in the U.S.-run Maritime Security Program, which is supposed to afford vessels and their owners protection against restrictive and discriminatory licensing because their services are often used by the U.S. military. 2 of the 3 incidents noted by the commission involved vessels run by the Danish shipping giant Maersk in November. The other occurred in May. Spanish authorities did not immediately comment on the November incidents, but in May, Spanish Transport Minister Oscar Puente said the foreign ministry had denied a request to dock by the Danish flagship Marianne Danica, saying it was carrying weapons to Israel. A day later, on May 17th, Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez told Spain's state broadcaster RTVE that this was the first ship carrying arms to Israel that had been denied entry. We're not going to contribute to any more arms reaching the Middle East, he said. The Middle East needs peace. That is why this first denial of authorization will start a policy for any boat carrying arms to Israel that wants to dock at a Spanish port. Hey, Kim, good morning. Yeah, I know, good for Spain, right? The refusal to allow the Marianne Danica to dock at the Mediterranean port of Cartagena. Cartagena, some of you old people know that movie reference, came just days before Spain, along with Ireland and Norway, recognized a Palestinian state on May 28th. Spain stopped its own defense companies from shipping arms to Israel in October last year at the start of its war on Gaza, which has since killed almost 45,000 people and wounded almost 106,000 others. Yeah, so Spain says, yeah, we did. So what? What are you going to do, bitch? We're Spain. We've been around longer than you. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Spain they'll probably fold with enough pressure put on them. Like beefing up missiles in the Europe area there, as U.S. is wanting to do there. So that tensions are heightening, folks. Weapons are at an all-time high as far as being purchased. So at least in money. Fred Edward, Entenmann's crumb cake. Crumb cake? No, I don't think so, Fred. No crumb cake or crumb cake. Sorry, that was for another show. I shouldn't have been so rude. The U.S. is stepping up efforts to increase deployment of intermediate and short-range missiles, including stationing hypersonic weapons in Europe and Asia, according to information obtained by RT. Production and deployment of such systems in the U.S. has reportedly been picking up pace in recent years. Among the major weapons being developed is the multiple launch rocket system Dark Typhon. Dark Typhon, that's what they called me in high school, which will be capable of firing Standard 6 missiles with a 500-kilometer range and Tomahawk cruise missiles with a 2,400-kilometer range, as well as a hypersonic missile that is also still being developed. The system is expected to become operational by 2025. Dun, dun, dun! All the shit going down to 2025. During the NATO summit this past July, Washington and Berlin announced that Dark Typhoon. It's not Dark Typhon. What the hell? Would be stationed in Wiesbaden, Germany, starting in 2026, a prospect that Russia slammed as an escalatory action, given that it would place the missiles within range of Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other major Russian cities. The Pentagon also reportedly plans to deploy the system on the Japanese island of Io by October of next year, which would put the missiles within 2.5 hours flight time of Russia's Vladivostok. Among Washington's most ambitious projects is the Dark Eagle hypersonic missile, which is designed to hit critical land-based targets with a range of 5,500 kilometers with strike precision of 3 to 10 meters. While still being developed, the prototype has passed at least 7 tests, 4 of them successfully. Oh, good job. According to the information obtained by RT, the U.S. plans to start deploying the missiles in Japan by October of next year, which would put them within 8 to 10 minutes flight time from Vladivostok. By 2026, one rocket launcher equipped with 16 missiles is expected to be stationed in Wiesbaden, with a flight time to central Russia also estimated at 8 to 10 minutes. Russia has long warned that the U.S. military buildup and the development of nuclear-capable missiles will draw a proportionate response. You always get what you give. I think that's a song. Earlier this week, Russia and Belarus, will you do the fandango, signed a security treaty which, among other things, cemented the deployment of Russia's brand new hypersonic ballistic Oreshnik missile systems in the neighboring country next year. The Russian military combat tested the Oreshnik last month, using it to strike a Ukrainian military industrial facility in Dnipropetrovsk with multiple warheads. I'm not saying that word. Washington unilaterally pulled out of the IRNFT, the INF, Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia back in 2019 because, that's what we do. Moscow also subsequently abandoned the treaty under the INF. Both countries were prohibited from new deployments of ground-based ballistic and cruise missiles with ranges between 500 and 5,500 kilometers. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, more missiles for Europe, and of course, more weapons for their pals in Ukraine, as I say. Here we go. So this is from Dave DeCamp at antiwar.com. Biden administration announces nearly $1 billion in weapons for Ukraine. Right? People getting capped. CEOs of healthcare industries getting capped. All right, keep sending money over there. On Saturday, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin announced the U.S. would be providing Ukraine with a new weapons package worth nearly $1 billion. The package, which is worth $988 million, is being provided through the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, which allows the U.S. to purchase weapons for Ukraine. You mean it allows the U.S. to launder money through Ukraine? Is that what I'm reading between the lines? According to the Pentagon, the weapons package includes ammunition for the HIMARS rocket systems, drones, and equipment, components, and spare parts to maintain, repair, and overhaul artillery systems, tanks, and armored vehicles. Austin announced a new military aid in remarks at the Reagan National Defense Forum, where he called for the incoming administration to build on what the Biden administration had done. I'm pretty sure they'll build on whatever. It's the same people, practically. So the baton will soon be passed, and others will decide the course ahead, and I hope that they will build on the strength that we have forged over the past 4 years, Austin said. The Biden administration had been working to ship as many weapons as possible to Ukraine before Trump is inaugurated. In recent months, Biden signed off on several significant escalations in the proxy war, including supporting long-range strikes on Russian territory and the provision of widely banned anti-personnel mines to Ukraine. Biden officials have also been calling for Ukraine to lower the conscription age from 25 to 18 is what they meant. So younger Ukrainians are sent to fight. Ukraine said, fuck you, we're not doing that shit. Biden asked Congress for an additional $24 billion to spend on the proxy war, but the request was rejected by House Speaker Mike Johnson, who said any decisions on Ukraine aid would be up to Trump. It's up to Trump. Oh, I think that was a Cars song. No, it's not. I like the Cars, though. The Cars is a pretty good band. Meanwhile, in Africa, there's some moving and shaking going on there. Burkina Faso leader names new premier after dissolving government. There he is right there. A day, and this was going to be more names that I butcher, so I apologize in advance. A day after dissolving the government without providing any reason, Burkina Faso's ruling military junta on Saturday appointed a new prime minister. Rimtalba Jean Emmanuel Ouedraogo, I'm pretty sure that's not how you say it, Ouedraogo, communications minister and spokesperson for the previous government, has been named as the country's new premier. Military leader Ibrahim Traoré made the announcement in a presidential decree read on state television on Saturday. A journalist by trade and a close ally of Traoré, Ouedraogo was formerly editor-in-chief and then director of the country's state television. No reason was given for the dismissal of former Prime Minister Apollinaire Joachim Kayalem de Tambela, who was appointed interim premier soon after Traoré seized power in September 2022. The junta ousted the military rule of Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba about 8 months after it had staged a coup to remove democratically elected President Roch Marc Kabore. The country is one of several West African nations where the military has recently taken over, capitalizing on popular discontent with previous democratically elected governments over security issues. However, since the latest coup, military leaders have struggled to end Burkina Faso's security challenges, the very reason it claims had prompted it to take over. It prompted it to take power. Growing attacks by extremists linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group have devastated the country. The same people that's now running Syria. Thousands have been killed in recent years, and more than 2 million people have been displaced, half of them children. Analysts believe around half of Burkina Faso's territory remains outside of government control. The country's transitional government has been running under a constitution approved by a National Assembly that included army officers, civil society groups, and traditional and religious leaders. Under pressure from the regional bloc, ECOWAS, the junta had set a goal to conduct an election in July 2024 to return the country to democratic rule. However, in May, it extended its transition term for 5 more years, the duration of one presidential term. Alongside Niger and Mali, which have also experienced coups, Burkina Faso has severed ties with long-standing Western and regional partners, including ECOWAS, which they all quit early this year. The 3 countries have banded together to form the Alliance of Sahel States and are battling jihadi violence that first erupted in northern Mali back in 2012, right? So vote counting is underway in Ghana in a tight presidential race. We're staying here in Africa. Vote counting got underway in Ghana Saturday evening following presidential and parliamentary elections, which come amid the country's worst financial crisis in a generation. Come on. President Nana Akufo-Addo is stepping down next month after serving the allowed 2 terms in office, and 12 candidates are vying to succeed him. The frontrunners in the race, including the ruling New Patriotic Party, that's MPP's, Mahamudu Bawumia has tried to appeal to young voters who want stable employment. Bawumia, an Oxford-educated economist and former deputy governor of the country's central bank, promised to build on the outgoing administration's efforts and stabilize the economy. His biggest challenger is the main opposition party's candidate and former president, Dramani Mahama, who is tipped for a potential comeback. Mahama has restated his promise to reset the country's on various fronts, including the financial, agricultural, environment, and health sectors. The world's second largest cocoa producer, cocoa, and a significant gold miner, Ghana used to be an economic powerhouse and the poster child of democracy in the region. I'm sure it was the poster child for democracy if the U.S. was involved somehow. But in recent years, it has struggled with an economic crisis, including surging inflation and a lack of jobs, resulting in widespread discontent with inflation and the rising cost of living. Hey, that's what's going on over here. NPP supporter Prince Fosu Amoafo said he's hoping to see massive development under the next government. I'm hoping the NPP will win and continue to complete the projects that we've started. We will continue to implement more policies which will ease the Ghanaian people in this country, he said. Voter Priscilla Tacky said a crucial issue for her is employment and education. If a new government is elected, they should try and build factories so that our children who are unemployed can have a job, she said. There are a lot of young children whose mothers cannot fund their education. Some cannot even afford 1 cedi, that's Ghana currency, for their children. Ghanaians were also voting for the country's 726 members of parliament in the polls. Were generally calm and peaceful. A beacon of democratic stability in a region shaken by extremist violence and coups. The first official results are expected tomorrow. So good for them. That's democracy in action. But how it really plays out, one never knows, right? We've been burned before. So back over on this side of the world, American Airlines is suspending flights to Haiti indefinitely. American Airlines is no longer resuming its daily service out of Miami to Port-au-Prince, Toussaint Louverture International Airport. American had initially suspended flights through February 12th. The suspension is now indefinite. A spokesperson for the U.S.-based carrier said that it will evaluate a possible resumption in late 2025 of the only daily service out of Miami International Airport into Haiti by a major U.S. airline. This comes after the FAA prohibited U.S. airlines from flying to Haiti for 30 days after gangs shot 3 planes. Further, the United Nations temporarily suspended flights to Port-au-Prince on Tuesday, limiting humanitarian aid coming into the country. The American Airlines statement read in part, American has made the difficult decision to suspend daily service between Miami and Port-au-Prince. The spokesperson said, we are proud of our more than 50-year commitment to Haiti, and we will continue to monitor the situation, assessing safety, security, and customer demand. In evaluating a return of service, we will proactively reach out to impacted customers to offer a full refund of their travel itineraries. So, that's the least you could do. Last month, several air carriers, including American Airlines, JetBlue Airways, and Spirit Airlines, Spirit, announced the suspension of daily flights into Haiti after confirmation their planes were hit by gunfire while in Haitian airspace in early November. But to be fair, though, Spirit Airlines is used to being shot at. Usually the bullets come from inside the plane. Neither Spirit nor JetBlue has said if and when they will resume Haiti flights. JetBlue Airways operates flights both out of Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood International Airport, and JFK International Airport into Port-au-Prince. Spirit Airlines, which was approaching Toussaint Louverture International Airport with passengers when the bullet struck, also suspended its service between Fort Lauderdale and Cap Haitien in the north of the country. No passengers were injured. The ban on commercial and cargo flights has created several problems for Haitians. The roads in and out of the capital are controlled by armed gangs. And mudslides last week buried 2 major roads connecting Cap Haitien and the capital. Those making it out of the capital have either had to beg for a ride on a government-leased helicopter meant for the purpose of moving security forces to hot zones, or pay $2,500 cash for a ride on a privately leased helicopter with a 20-pound weight limit. The FAA initially placed all of Haiti under the flight ban. It later amended its decision to exclude airports outside of the capital. The only other airport that can receive commercial international flights, Hugo Chavez International Airport, is in the northern city of Cap Haitien. Today, the small airport serves as the only air bridge in and out of the country. The airspace between Haiti and the Dominican Republic is still closed. The Bahamas suspended flights into the country. The only direct service to the U.S. currently is via Haitian-owned Sunrise Airways. Despite that, it has not stopped the U.S. from deporting Haitians back to the country. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security flew 70 deportees into Cap Haitien despite the days of heavy rains that had left the city flooded and all access out of the city to other parts of Haiti blocked. So, to recap, so far, did Spirit go bankrupt? I don't know. I think so. They might have. But so far, South Korea, fucked. Syria, fucked. Haiti, fucked. The list goes on and on. But don't worry, folks. It's okay, right? All these people making money, at the expense of human lives and infrastructure and all that stuff. It's okay because the wealthy are getting even wealthier, right? So that's all that matters. This is from Common Dreams and Julia Conley. This is from last week, but I think it's still relevant. So, it continues to be relevant. So, wealth of world's richest has doubled over the past decade. Probably over the last half decade. Driven largely by the accumulation of massive wealth by the richest people in the U.S., the Swiss wealth manager UBS said Thursday the assets of billionaires around the world more than doubled over the past decade. Between 2015 and 2024, the total wealth of billionaires increased by 121%, from $6.3 trillion to $14 trillion. Meanwhile, the MSCI AC World Index of Global Equities, which measures the performance of more than 3,000 stocks from both developed and emerging markets, rose by 73%. The planet's total gross domestic product is about $105.4 trillion, with a population of just over 8 billion, underscoring the extreme concentration of wealth among the very richest people. The number of billionaires rose from 1,757 to 2,682 over the past decade, while the wealthiest people in the world boasted significant gains over just the past year. Right, where's those, what are those things called? Guillotines? Billionaires' wealth jumped by about 17% in 2024, with the accumulation of wealth among the richest people in the U.S. offsetting a decline in China. U.S. billionaires amassed wealth gains that were 27.6% higher than the previous year, accumulating a total of $5.8 trillion with a T, more than 40% of international billionaire wealth. The tax cuts pushed through by President-elect Donald Trump and the Republican Party in 2017 are still in effect in the U.S. tax policy. Analysts have found that the law was skewed to the rich. Oh, you think? The policy analysts just figured that shit out? With households in the top 1% of incomes expecting to receive an average tax cut of more than $60,000 in 2025 compared to an average tax cut of less than $500 for people in the bottom 60%. As Common Dreams reported this week, the top 12 U.S. billionaires now control $2 trillion. The wealth of the four richest people in the U.S., Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Oracle founder Larry Ellison, and Mark Zuckerberg, has hit $1 trillion. These four men were worth $74 billion 12 short years ago, said Americans for Tax Fairness. Tax billionaires. At the G20 summit last month, the world leaders agreed to engage cooperatively to ensure that ultra-high net worth individuals are effectively taxed. Then they had champagne and they said, wait, what? What happened? Why? We didn't say that. Those are lies perpetrated by the man to bring a brother down, right? So that's what's happening. Poor UNRWA in Israel, trying to, they're always being smeared by Israel, and so nothing else is new, right? So they're going after Israel's global campaign of propaganda.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things they are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
All right, so UNRWA slams Israel over global disinformation campaign. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has hit back at Israel after the country's foreign ministry launched an ad campaign portraying the group's workers as terrorists. UNRWA accused Israel of running a global disinformation campaign after images of a masked man wearing its logo in the colors of Hamas began appearing on billboards near its headquarters in New York and Times Square. Do you support humanitarian aid free of terror? Read one of the ads, while another said paychecks to terrorists or humanitarian aid. In a statement published on their website on Wednesday, UNRWA said the company, that's UNRWA if you're just listening, said the campaign is the latest global effort by a UN member state to label a UN agency as a terror organization that may amount to hate speech. This campaign is creating immense reputational damage to UNRWA, this agency wrote. These ads can put the lives of UNRWA personnel at serious risk. Yes, just like labeling every Muslim person in the country a terrorist after 9/11. Remember that craziness? People scared. The organization also called for regulations to control the spread of such damaging and possible dangerous messages. The head of the digital department at Israel's Foreign Ministry and Deputy Director General for Public Diplomacy, David Saranga, responded to the statement by showing an alleged UNRWA worker participating in the October 7 attacks. UNRWA has lost legitimacy and can no longer function as a UN body, Saranga wrote on the tweeters. Israel's official Twitter account also weighed in, saying, "You've done enough reputational damage on your own by literally employing hundreds of terrorists." Classic ploy, this projection in this case, because Israel's really the terrorist. Sources in the ministry told Ynet that there was no intention of halting the campaign, which had reportedly reached millions within 2 days. The sources said the goal of the campaign is to amplify the campaign's content and reach, aiming to convince decision makers of the need to find an alternative to the aid agency, whose many members are reportedly involved in terrorist activities, as demonstrated in the events of October 7th. Israel has long accused the organization of affiliations with Hamas with no evidence to back up its claims. It has claimed that 12 UNRWA staff members had directly or indirectly participated in the October 7th attack. The accusations caused 16 Western countries to freeze their funding to the organization, affecting the 87% of Palestinians who are dependent on its services. UNRWA is the largest provider of aid to the Palestinians, including throughout Israel's most recent onslaught. While some states have resumed their contributions to UNRWA, it has not stopped the Israeli state from moving to formally designate the organization as terrorist group. If the law is passed, Israel could openly target UNRWA facilities and its staff, destroying the agency's ability to continue its aid to Palestinians as famine looms in the Strip. Israel has long opposed the operations of UNRWA, which was established after the 1948 expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homeland to make way for the creation of Israel. The Knesset has approved 2 bills banning UNRWA from Israel and limiting it in Gaza and the West Bank. A total of 251 UNRWA staff have been killed since Israel's current war on Gaza, while 2/3 of its buildings in Gaza have been hit, many directly or several times, according to the agency. Yeah, so, and they've been trying to do this for a hot minute too, because they're trying to ethnically cleanse the place. You can't be going in there with aid. You're aiding the people we're trying to cleanse. Of course, Israel loves lying to the press, and probably the biggest propaganda machine in the world. So of course they had to go after journalists. That's not news, right? So Israeli forces killed 18 journalists in Gaza in November alone, according to a rights group we'll get to here in a second. At least 18 Palestinian media workers were killed in November as a result of Israeli assaults on the Gaza Strip, highlighted a recent report by a Palestinian journalists' rights group. The report issued by the Palestinian Center for Development and Media Freedoms, MADA, indicated that the Israeli occupation is deliberately targeting journalists to suppress coverage of the war and its severe human rights violations. Of course, according to MADA, Israeli forces committed 65 violations against journalists in the occupied West Bank and Gaza during the reported period. The report detailed that these violations included 22 incidents in the occupied West Bank and 43 in Gaza. MADA emphasized that the Israeli assaults aimed to silence journalists and prevent them from documenting the ongoing events and atrocities for the global community. The group further reported that Israeli airstrikes destroyed the homes of 7 journalists in Gaza. Another Palestinian journalist killed in Gaza, and that death toll is now at 192 for journalists, right? And journalism is a dangerous business. It always has been whenever you're dealing with dangerous elements, but particularly today with they used to be somewhat protected in war zones, right? As long as you had your press notifications all over you, you were fine. But now it's not. Now it's not. They go after aid workers. They go after the press. Nobody is safe in these war zones. So if you are an independent journalist and you're out there, please, obviously, be very careful because, as always, fuckery is afoot, but you never know. It may not come from just the Israelis. So, just saying. Oh, speaking of Israel, guess what? The U.S. and Canadian universities hire Israeli firms to curb pro-Palestinian protests. Wow, look at that. Boy, they bring in the heavy hitters, right? So this is from Middle East Monitor. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger. That's what she said, but not to me. A report published on Saturday by the Israeli newspaper Yedioth Ahronoth revealed that several universities in both the U.S. and Canada have entered into agreements with Israeli security companies to suppress pro-Palestinian protests occurring on their campuses. And Anadolu Agency, that's a Turkish outlet, reports. So cops in the major cities, the police, are trained by the IDF, so it makes sense that you have to bring in some sort of Israeli security for the baby cops or the college cops, right? The report notes that after the election of former U.S. President Donald Trump, who pledged to penalize academic institutions that failed to control radicals and Hamas supporters, a number of universities in both countries turned to Israeli security firms or those with links to Israel to manage protests supporting Palestine. CUNY, City University of New York, a major hotspot for protests last year, has recently signed a $4 million contract with Strategy Security Corp. This company, owned by Yosef Sordi, a former New York City police officer, has publicly disclosed his professional training in Israel. The report also draws attention to the involvement of Israeli security firms in violent confrontations that occurred in May at the University of California, Los Angeles. That's UCLA. Protesters stated that personnel from Magen Am, a company with Israeli military ties, were aggressive in their actions during the demonstration. UCLA confirmed that the firm worked alongside local police to manage the protests, with the company receiving $1 million in cash in return. I don't know if it's cash, probably check. In addition, the Contemporary Services Corporation, which has an exclusive branch in Israel, was contracted to oversee protests across multiple U.S. university campuses and protest locations. Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, also enlisted 2 Israeli security firms, Perceptage International, led by Adam Cohen, the former head of security for the Israeli Central Court in Jerusalem, and Moshav Security Consulting, operated by Eyal Feldman, a former Israeli Army Reserve commander and ex-advisor to the Israeli Ministry of Defense. In April, students and faculty opposing Israel's war on Gaza held a sit-in at Columbia University in New York, demanding that the administration sever academic ties with Israeli universities and pull investments from companies supporting the occupation of Palestinian territories. As police intervened and arrested dozens of protesters at U.S. universities, similar demonstrations spread to universities across France, the UK, Germany, Canada, and India as protesters expressed solidarity with their American counterparts and called for an end to the war in Gaza. And then it goes on to tell about the number of people killed in the ICC and their arrest warrants for Bibi and Gallant. So these colleges, man, I am so glad I'm not in college today. I have to say, I would probably be kicked out. I would have been canceled so long ago. It's not even funny. What is this? Is this going to stay up the whole time? All right, maybe not. We'll see. Okay. Meanwhile, they've been talking about the TikTok ban, right? And so that seems to be making its way forward. U.S. Appeals Panel upholds potential TikTok ban. This is by Jessica Corbett over at Common Dreams. First Amendment advocates on Friday criticized a U.S. appellate court for upholding a law that would ban TikTok in the U.S. if its Chinese parent company does not swiftly sell the social media platform used by an estimated 170 million Americans. Signed by Sleepy Joe in April, the law gives ByteDance until January 19th to divest from TikTok. 3 judges from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit found that the parts of the law considered by the panel do not contravene the First Amendment nor other parts of the Constitution of the United States. The First Amendment exists to protect free speech in the United States. Here, the government acted solely to protect that freedom from a foreign adversary nation and to limit the adversary's ability to gather data on people in the United States. Judge Douglas Ginsburg wrote in an opinion, the company is expected to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Responding to the decision on social media Friday, Ashley Gorski, senior staff attorney with the ACLU's National Security Project, said that the D.C. Circuit's decision today to uphold the TikTok ban is enormously disappointing. If allowed to stand, it would give the government far too much power to restrict Americans' speech online. Jamil Jaffer, who was on a friend of the court brief as director of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, issued a similar warning after the ruling was released. This is a deeply misguided ruling that reads important First Amendment precedents too narrowly and gives the government sweeping power to restrict Americans' access to information, ideas, and media from abroad, he said. I hope the D.C. Circuit's ruling won't be the last word, and I doubt it will be. And this is something there. Kate Ruan, director of the Center for Democracy and Technology's Free Expression Project, also looked ahead to the next court fight. The D.C. Circuit decision upholding the TikTok ban will immeasurably harm the free expression of hundreds of millions of TikTok users in the U.S. and globally who use the app to create, to share information, to get their news, and promote their businesses, she said in a statement. We hope the next phase of review of this misguided and overbroad law will be a chance to right this wrong and prevent it from going into effect. In addition to arguing the law is unconstitutional, attorneys for TikTok and ByteDance have claimed it's impossible to divest the platform commercially and technologically, the AP reported. They also said any sale of TikTok without the coveted algorithm, the platform's secret sauce, that Chinese authorities would likely block under any divestiture plan, would turn the U.S. version of TikTok into an island disconnected from other global content. President-elect Donald Trump, who is set to take office one day after the law's divestment deadline, previously supported banning the platform, but during the latest campaign, he pledged to try to save TikTok. According to the Washington Post, Trump is expected to try to halt the TikTok ban. People familiar with his views on the matter told the Washington Post in early November, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. Alan Rosenstein, a former national security advisor to the Justice Department, said Trump could take any of three actions to help TikTok fend off the ban: persuading Congress to repeal the law, yeah, good luck with that, directing his new attorney general not to enforce it, he could probably do that, and declaring that ByteDance has satisfied the statute by performing a qualified divestiture of TikTok. Although the president-elect hasn't yet weighed in on the new court decision, on Thursday he shared on his Truth Social platform a post-election overview of how his campaign performed on TikTok. While Trump may move to preserve TikTok in the United States, civil rights attorneys and Harvard Law School cyber law clinic instructor Alejandra Caraballo noted that the court decision's terrible precedent is also a concern as he returns to office. This will be a test of the U.S.'s ability to shut down access to websites they dislike, Caraballo stressed. Really bad to do. With Trump in office, we could enter a new era of government censorship. Dun, dun, dun. Quite possible. I got a twofer here from Zero Hedge. This one is wild. So the House overwhelmingly passes crucial Communism Teaching Act. Dun, 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 dun. So this is from, they just basically copied this from the Epoch Times. Stacey Robinson is writing this. The House on December 6th passed the Crucial Communism Teaching Act with a vote of 327 to 62. The bill, introduced by Representative Maria Elvira Salazar and co-sponsored by 33 members of the House, seeks to address a gap in the education system related to the history of communism. Communism is one of the most destructive political ideologies the world has ever seen, Representative Salazar said when reintroducing the bill earlier this year. The Crucial Communism Teaching Act is important because our youth must remember the crimes of the communists, including those inflicted upon my constituents and their families in Florida's 27th District. She first introduced the bill in September 2021, but it was not brought up for a vote at the time. Specifically, the bill seeks to educate American students that communism has led to the deaths of over 100 million victims worldwide, and that 1.5 billion people still suffer under communism. Ahead of the vote, Representative Danny Burgess, also of Florida, warned that many youth have been taught to see communism as something desirable, noting that a recent report indicated half of Gen Z students were unaware that the Chinese Communist Party is responsible for more deaths than Nazi Germany. A little context there might help. He also said that more than a quarter of Generation Z students view communism favorably, and that 20% think that it is a better system than capitalism. The curriculum will be developed by the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, an entity created by a unanimous vote of Congress in 1993 under President Bill Clinton. American students deserve to know the truth. Communism is not a promise for a more equitable future. It is a brutal ideology that runs counter to democracy and the very principles of our nation was founded upon, said Ken Pope, CEO of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. He tends to forget that this country was built on the principles of slavery, and that, more profits, less paying people, more slaves, please. Yeah, so that's the thing, the rise of communism, so they have to really teach you the real truth. Let's make sure they know the real truth about communism. They should do the same thing with capitalism and see what the kids think, right? Capitalism, like, the kids know what capitalism is. They're soaking in it. It's just like palm olive, they're soaking in it. Back to Zero Hedge, they got this from Headline USA. LA Times owner may add bias meter to the site next year. Interesting. What does that mean? Somebody could understand as they read it at the, let's see. Here we go. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the biotech billionaire who acquired the newspaper in 2018, told CNN political commentator Scott Jennings on his Flyover Country podcast that he's been quietly building an AI meter behind the scenes, adding that it would be available on the website in January. That's next month, folks. Somebody could understand as they read it that the source of the article has some level of bias, he said. And what we need to do is not have what we call confirmation bias, and then that story automatically, the reader can press a button and get both sides of that exact same story based on that story and then give comments. He then stated that the reason why the mainstream media is dying is because the major news outlets failed to separate news and opinion sections. Wow, you got that right. LA Times Guild, the union representing hundreds of the newspaper's newsroom staffers, criticized the Times owner for claiming that the newspaper is highly biased, stating that Soon-Shiong didn't provide any evidence or examples. Our members and all Times staffers abide by a strict set of ethics guidelines, which call for fairness, precision, transparency, vigilance against bias, and an earnest search to understand all sides of an issue, the union stated Thursday. Those longstanding principles will continue guiding our work. The recent news came after the newspaper decided not to endorse former Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris for president, which resulted in leftists canceling their newspaper subscriptions and journalists at the Times quitting their jobs to protest the decision. Soon after the 2024 election, the newspaper's leadership announced that it fired everyone on its far-left editorial board to ensure the newspaper would become politically neutral. Far left? They had far left editorial board? I don't think so. After doing that, the Times hired Jennings to be a part of the new unbiased editorial board. Yeah, so there you go. Good stuff there, right? A bias meter. You should just save yourself the trouble. Put a meter that says always biased, and then you'll be in good stuff. You'll be in good times. Yeah, so that's crazy. That's still about the communist thing, right? They are just scared shitless, man. It's gonna be just like the 50s all over again. The Red Scare, right? But it's like kids have more information about history now and about actual what communism and socialism, those things are about. And they know what capitalism is. They live in it. Like I said, they live in it every day. They know what it's about, And these are the kids that are going to inherit the future of this country. I think that's, if they want to do some more communism, if they're learned about it, that's the thing. If you're not learned about it, you're just like saying, you should read theory. You should, tell people to read theory without actually trying to give them some sort of real life example of what good, communism or socialism could do, right? I personally think we need a mixed bag of everything, right? Some sort of trade, but then like some sort of where the government provides some of these basic things for you so you don't have to worry about that. You could be a more productive person, more productive member of society, whatever, right? So, yeah, so finally tonight, folks, there around the holidays, there's always some sort of criminal activity that's going on, and it always seems like it's in Florida. A bear steals inflatable Grinch from a Florida home, and it wasn't a one-time thing. He's a repeat offender, as they like to say in the movies. So let's. This is from Channel 2 in Florida somewhere. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, he was literally clawing at trying to unplug it, and yeah, he took it to the woods.
You are watching a bear attempt to save Christmas by stealing a Grinch out of a Golden Gate Estates woman's yard. The homeowner says the bear has done this twice now. NBC2's Samantha Romero spoke with the homeowner who says this bear really doesn't like the Grinch. Sam?
Shanique Suarez told me she put out her holiday decorations in November, but last Friday, one of them went missing. At first, she thought it was a prank or some dogs. Turns out it was neither. It was something much bigger and a lot furrier.
Yeah, we were just dumbfounded. We were like, where did it go?
It all started on Black Friday.
Who stole our
Shanique Suarez
Grinch?
noticed her inflatable Grinch decoration missing. She checked the cameras, looked around, and didn't find anything.
Somebody taking it, somebody playing a prank on us.
Until she got a text from a neighbor.
And my neighbor texted me 2 days ago saying, hey, it's 2 houses down. Is it yours? I said, yeah. And I went and picked it up and we replugged it, but under the camera view so we can see what's going to happen again.
Then 3 o'clock Wednesday morning, her surveillance system notified her. She took a peek and saw a bear stealing the Grinch and dragging him into the woods.
He was literally like clawing at, like trying to unplug it, and yeah, he took it to the woods. I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I literally like text my husband and I'm like, what is going on? Like we were texting back and forth, just rewatching the video, sending it to all of our family and friends at 5 in the morning because we were like, what is going on?
As for the Grinch, he's not seeing Christmas this year from Suarez's porch. Now,
actually, it's chewed off the plug.
It's from inside the trash can.
We thought it was the craziest thing, but yeah, it's a funny story to tell.
Local in Golden Gate Estates along 22nd Avenue Northeast. Samantha Romero, NBC2.
Delightful. There's a new book out by Dr. Seuss now. It's called The Grinch is a Bitch, a Bear's Bitch. So that's what happens, holidays. You get your shit stolen by, you think it's some kids or, some weird people who like that kind of stuff. Wesley, what's up, man? Good to see you. But it turns out it was a bear stealing your shit. So CJ's in here too. The Steeler got stolen. I know, right? The Grinch getting some karma. Instant karma is going to get you, I thought that was funny though. More holiday shenanigans, I'm sure. Well, folks, that's the end of the show here. Coming up, I don't know, probably pretty soon. Yeah, I think so. I think Kevin and Black Bear News is going to be on soon. Willie's got his show on tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, Around the World, D and Friends is at 9 p.m. All of those on YouTube. Some on Rockfin, some on Rumble, some on Twitch. Yeah, you'll have to find out for yourself. Also, make sure you're following these nice folks here and checking out their shows. In a few moments, I'll have the links to all the news items in the show for you. So if you want to take a little more in-depth look at some of those things, always do. Check my homework too. If you don't like the sources I use, let me know why. If you think there's some scummy, sleazy people out there, and there usually are. We want to weed out the bad ones and keep the good ones. So, yeah. So, if you could like, share, and subscribe. If you're new to this joint, I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. The views help too. Thank you so much for that. If you want to donate some cash to the show, you can do that. We have Venmo, CashApp, PayPal, all that stuff down below. Or if you want to become a Patreon member, you can do that $1 a month. Then you get your name up on the thing. Usually at the beginning and the end, we like to take care of all our peeps that have donated to us. And we appreciate all of it. So if you can't donate any money or anything like that, if you could share out the links, that would be aces as well. So that's it for me. As for the future, I will be back Wednesday. I might be doing a gaming stream tonight after Willie's show. I haven't decided yet, but I did one yesterday, and I was very disappointed. It was some sort of bus driving simulation thing, which I thought was particularly, something that it was monotonous that we could, turn into something silly. And then I got to a bus stop, and then the parking brake wouldn't turn on. I said, fuck it. I only lasted like 45 minutes into that game. But it was a free game, so we're doing another free game. It's Star Wars, it's Lego Star Wars with the Skywalker saga, and it was a free game too. So that's where we're featuring free games, so you don't have to pay money for games. And some of you probably don't anyway, you little pirates. Yar, matey, I'll be whipping you with me cat o' nine tails. You know who you are. Yeah, so we'll be back 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, 8 a.m. Specific time on Wednesday with more news. Not sure who's going to be on ExtraBulla Live this week yet. May just do a solo thing. We'll talk about what's going on around the world. A little chit chat with the chat, hang out with the gang, see what's going on with them, It's always good to, stay in touch with our peeps. So that's it for me. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!